What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And my shimmering guest, all the way from Italy, is Martina Gruppo. Hello, Martina.
Hi, Gary. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm sensational. We're gonna take a really nasty, ugly topic and we're gonna have fun with it and we're gonna help people out and we're gonna make this really good, right?
Excellent. I'm in.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm just going to read your very short bio here, very quick, just so people know a little bit about you. So, everybody, we have Martina Gruppo. She's a newly published English author who has written about her life story in the book Hello, Flower, detailing the decades she spent with a covert narcissist and includes detail of expat life in Italy, France, and Nicaragua, and details bereavement and cancer. Sometimes funny, often self depreciating, but more often than not brutally honest. Martina details how a lack of boundaries made her a prime target for this sort of abuse by a douchebag narcissist. So, welcome, my friend. Thank you so much for
Oh,
joining me. I hope you've had a little wine, a little pasta, because I know it's dinner time over there. So,
not yet,
not
but I
yet. Yeah, you eat late over
will.
there. I forgot. So everybody, because for the What If You Could podcast, before I set Martina loose, I always ask my guests, Martina, have you ever had a what if you could moment or what if you could thought? We're the What If You Could podcast. So if there's a what if you could you can share with us, we would love that.
I think if I could, I would go back to me in my teenage years and make myself take a qualification in boundaries and raising them and keeping them. That's what I do if I could, because I think my life would have turned out ever so slightly differently if I had had some boundaries in place. Yeah, that's what I think. I may have mistaken the sense of this, because what if I could? I'm not sure if it's about going back in time or for the future. So you're going to have to help me out with that one.
That was perfect. It's all about what hits your mind when you hear the question. And what came to you is boundaries. And so that's perfect. I mean, shit, I know a bunch of people who think, what if I could have just seen that coming, right? I mean, or if I could have blocked that, or if I would have gone right instead of gone left. I mean, oh my God, I've got a million of them. So no, that was perfect. But the question that leads me to is, how the hell do you know what boundaries to put up at what time, right? I mean, sometimes you don't know.
I can only speak for me, but I think as a woman of a certain age, when we, my generation, which I think is, which letter of the alphabet? X, I think I am. If you go back in time, back to the sort of 70s and 80s, let's leave aside boundaries for the moment, but prioritizing yourself or doing what you want was considered to be a negative thing. And I think that's where boundaries start to loosen, disappear, dissolve, that kind of thing. I think as women, we're taught that everybody else has to come first. Wherever you are in the pecking order, whether it's a marriage, a parent-child relationship, whatever it is, it's almost as if your needs need to be right down here, and everybody else needs to be made happy, needs to be catered for, needs to be looked after. And that's where the boundaries get pushed to one side and you become a people pleaser. So I think in terms of that, I think it's really important that we teach children, girls and boys throughout their teenage years, if not even earlier. It's okay if something doesn't feel right. You don't have to do it. Now, I'm not talking about not eating dinner or not consuming vegetables or something like that. I just mean, if you don't want to go and stay at somebody's house because somebody's making you feel uncomfortable there, you shouldn't go. It can be as simple as that. And I think those are the kind of boundaries that we overlooked when we were younger because we were out to make a good impression on everybody. And we wanted to show, look, I'm available. For whoever wants me or needs me, I'm available. Or look how wonderfully behaved my children are. This was almost like, look what they do.
Yeah.
That kind of
You
thing.
know, but it happens. I mean, it can happen at any age. I mean, shit, I did it with my second wife when I was, what did I, well, when did I get together? I think I was 59 or something like that. And she had had a tough go, and I wanted to be the Prince Charming who came along and made everything better. But in doing so, I drained myself to the point of, making myself physically sick. And so I
Did
think we
she?
could do it at any time, men, women, anybody, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm only speaking for myself. But
Yeah.
did I don't want to get into a personal thing, but did you feel that you were not being appreciated?
Oh.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Right.
putting that's putting it mildly. But the thing is, speaking personally again, I didn't I didn't stop doing what I was doing, even though it hurt to try to continue to help and be the good guy and get her through stuff. Right. And so, but it came to a head where it's like, dude, either you're going to die or she's going to leave you anyways. Um, but you've got to stop. It's got to stop, right? And so we're still married. We had a couple of things that made it hit ahead, but I get it. It's painful. It's really painful to drain yourself like that.
So you almost answered the question yourself. Even though we didn't learn boundaries at a very young age, we're learning boundaries right up until now. I'm still learning about
Yeah.
when to say no and how to say no, whether it be from the neighbor who got a bit handsy, okay, and speaking up and having to say to him, no, that's not appropriate. That it's not okay that even to kiss me on both cheeks. I don't care if it's a cultural thing. I don't feel right about this. I
Mhm.
think it's that thing of actually making yourself heard. And I didn't for decades. I mean, I fought against it. Inside that there's something wrong. That something doesn't feel right. But as a born and raised people pleaser, despite being very feisty and strong-willed and determined, I was still the person that I thought, well, I need to do this. That resulted in me being in a relationship with somebody for 11 years who nearly destroyed me. And by nearly destroying me, I mean, I blame myself that things weren't perfect. I never thought or considered that it was anything that I couldn't do. And like you said, that drives you almost into an early grave because you're constantly remonstrating internally with, why can't I make this better? Why isn't this perfect? What am I doing wrong? Not looking around and thinking, well, maybe it's the fact that he hasn't actually worked at all and you're paying for everything. That could be something to do with it. I think all of the time, what we do, especially those in covert narcissistic relationships, we make excuses. We are their best wingman, and nobody, literally nobody, can criticize because that would, that would bring up the shame that you feel that you failed.
Yeah.
I
What would you? I don't believe that my wife is a narcissist. I'm going to head and say that now. She'll
think.
probably hear this. I don't really care. Um, But I do believe that some people are just naturally born givers or empaths, and other people are naturally born takers. Or maybe from childhood, from a childhood that was so twisted in one way or the other, you need to be constantly taking because you never got anything as a kid, or you're constantly trying to give to show that you're a good kid. But a narcissist, running into a narcissist is a completely different animal, right? I mean, that's a completely different creature altogether than a taker, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I think, I think there's it's almost like a spectrum. Okay, so there's a lot of degrees of low selfishness and high selfishness, where people are not particularly great at embracing other people or being empathetic. Okay, and like you say, then there's narcissism. And how about if I said to you, because this has really helped me at other times, people raise their eyes, don't they? When anybody mentions the word, oh, I was with a narcissist, oh, here we go again. Another label for another disorder or disturbance or whatever it is. And they kind of, you almost feel like, oh, okay, I didn't, I'm not trying to blame something on a particular word. But if you instead say the words coercive control, you have a completely different reaction. Suddenly, the whole thing becomes really serious. Suddenly, people are almost saying, oh gosh, that sounds awful. Really, coercive control. Coercive control or psychological brainwashing or whatever you want to call it is so appalling and the damage is so profound, you don't even realize it. You don't realize it for years afterwards, just how much, has happened. I'm still, what's the word, triggered by things, or I still have memories of certain things that suddenly I'm like, oh, crikey, yep, that happened, and I realize that that purse with €100 in it, the little purse that I kept that I absolutely adored since I was 15 years old with Winnie the Pooh on it, wasn't lost that day. When you just and everything kind of slots into place, and you're like, oh right, you took it. Said that I dropped it in the stand, pretended to look for it with me. It's really strange things like that that set you apart from just a natural breakup or being with somebody who's a bit of a, sorry to use the word, but a bit of an asshole. You know, I used to even say, yeah, I know, sometimes he can be a bit of a dickhead, but he's my dickhead kind of thing, almost as an excuse. And it was brilliant because I defended him the whole time. Oh, he's tired. He doesn't speak English. People don't want to employ him. It's really unfair. I backed up his sense of victimhood in a way that must have been so gratifying, so pleasing to him. And as long as I did that, it was just great. I'm sorry, I have veered off the topic of what you were saying.
No,
They
no. There
I
is
did
no
warn you.
there is no specific topic. We go where we go, and it because the whole concept of this chat, in my mind, is that as things come up for you, you reveal them to us, and then we can kind of explore them. And
Yeah.
so, again, our situations were completely different. I'm not sitting, don't trying to want
Oh,
to
no,
pick on
no.
my current wife because
Yeah.
that's it. However, I have a lot of friends who, gals, who have been in that type of relationship and have looked back and said, holy shit, how did I? I'm a strong person. I'm a smart person. How did I let myself get, manipulated by this asshole for all this time? And you start seeing it, right? I mean, eventually you come out of the ether and of the charm and you start seeing it, but you're still there. And that's the craziest, most painful part, right?
I didn't want to interrupt you, but you just hit the nail on the head by describing your friends. Okay. You said, how was I manipulated? I'm strong-willed, I'm determined, I'm feisty, I'm more than capable of doing all of this. Those are the ones that they pick on. Those are the ones they go straight for, because the sense for a narcissist to go after somebody who is easygoing and doesn't really mind and, is maybe not as resourceful, they're no good. They're not the kind of people that they want to hang around with. They see you, they like it, and they feel by proxy they can almost become you. And then they start to tear you down because they cannot bear the idea that someone is better than them. That's kind of the crux of it. And it's so awful. As somebody who's come out of an 11-year, the second time, but you can read about that in the book, the second time, can you believe it? I had a chance. I could have just, never seen him again, but no, I went back for more. 11 years in, and one of the hardest things, but also the most understandable thing that people say to me, how could you have let that happen? How could you, of all people, have let that happen? And I don't want to accuse anybody or say that anybody there is victim blaming, but immediately that makes me so upset, not with them, but because I know that there are thousands of people out there who, for that very reason, will not say, I think that there's something wrong here. I feel like I'm walking around on eggshells. I don't feel like I'm ever enough.
Yeah, and the thing is that what's so ugh, really irritating about that fucking statement is that you've already said that to yourself a million times. It's like, I don't need you to repeat what I already know, you asshole. So just I don't
But
need right, I don't need to hear that.
no, but hang on a second. But I actually understand them as well, because, when you read about somebody like me, because I really was, warts and all, this is what happened. This is how easy it is. I've had people say to me, people who've interviewed me, and have said, I was screaming at you to get out. I was getting angry with you because you didn't leave, and I understand. Hands up, I totally understand. But anybody that comes to me and says, and I've had several, a lot of people who have confided in me or spoken to me about this, and they've said, I think, this is what's happening with me. I'm really worried. I think he might be a narcissist. And then they've explained something to me. My first thing, always, the thing that I always say is, I don't know if he is or not. You know, you have to do the research, you have to do the work, and then you have to decide based on what you've experienced and everything else. I'm not wandering around with a big white flag, white, not red, a big white flag saying to everybody, come on out, all you narcissists. I'm not hunting them down. I would rather there was no narcissists in this world at all, male or female, but they're out there. So sorry. Yeah, that's my take on it. So I don't feel that the people who say that are necessarily victim blaming. In fact, you know what, Gary? I think they're lucky, really lucky, because the concept for them of being in a relationship so destructive that you can't see a way out, that it's like a hall of mirrors, is so alien to them. That means that they've been lucky enough to have the happiest of relationships. Do you see what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a very big difference between running into and falling in love and getting a relationship with a really wounded person. Because let's face it, we're all fucked up in one way or another, right? We're all wounded in some way. So we get with a wounded person and we want to be the healer, we want to be the giver, we want to be the caretaker, the caregiver and stuff. That's kind of my thing, right? But then on the other hand, you run into that narcissist and they are a professionally wicked, vicious snake, and so I don't care
I,
how wounded they are. I don't really care. I don't care about your story. I don't care how it because you have taken that to hurt and abuse other people. And that's just not right. That's a very sick way to live your life.
you'll never know, but you will never know who they are because
Yeah.
the second that he realized, not that I was onto him because I wasn't onto him until I left, but the second he realized that I wasn't believing his crap anymore, that I didn't believe, when he spouted. In fact, well, no, I won't say that because that's quite rude. But that there is some things that I used to say to myself. His lies were so frequent, it was unreal to me, absolutely unreal how often he thought I would take it. But at the point, and I did take it, but at the point that he realized I was no longer going to supply him, okay, with what he needed, he'd already moved on. I mean, he'd moved on years ago. He had one everywhere. But when he moved on, he did so by fooling the next person into believing that I was the worst of the worst. So they
Of
never get
course.
found out. They never, ever, they continue. The only great thing is, well, I say great, I mean, I don't really care anymore. But the only positive thing of this is as they get older, it becomes harder and harder to find a new supply or somebody that believes you or somebody that is going to maintain your lifestyle and everything else because you're old, you're getting older, and it's at this point that you kind of
It's not
want.
as easy to be Prince Charming when you're old, fat, and ugly. It's just not as easy to be Prince Charming, and you can't find as many white horses to ride in on, and you can't cover up your bullshit as well as you could. Is it takes a lot of effort, right? I mean, it must be exhausting to be a narcissist because
Oh
it's
my
the
goodness.
constant work of the abuse, of the stories, of the lies, of this persona you're putting out there to keep this bullshit going, right?
So when towards the end, when he was coming out with so much crap, um, I remember he would get mixed up. He would get the stories mixed up because he'd forgotten what he'd said to me. And I just remember because at that time I didn't realize how much damage had been done to me. That at that time I was just thinking the marriage is ending and I've got to leave and I've got to go away. But it was unreal how he'd say something and then he would try his tried and tested method of gaslighting, and then that wasn't working because I was just looking at him saying, "What are you saying?" One of the things that women, I say women because they are mainly, but I've also spoken to men about this, who've been in relationships with narcissists or a partner who is coercively controlling them or manipulating them or gaslighting them. And when you come out of that relationship, the how can I say the anger that you feel, it's almost blinding. But I read a really lovely thing somewhere, and I've always carried this with me, is that if you're angry about something, it's because your body is telling you that something isn't right. We don't just
Yeah.
get angry for no reason. Well, not many of us do. And what I love is the most precious thing to people on the other side of that relationship is just one word. It's not even about being happy. Okay. It's not about travel. It's not about eating food. All of that is encompassed. It's peace.
Yeah.
It's suddenly finding that life is just so peaceful.
Yeah. That's a huge word, and it's a word that people don't always put in the right context sometimes because there is a certain because being in the situation that guys find themselves, mostly gals, it seems like the trauma that your body goes through, and you go through disease that you don't even know about, and the actual physical breaking down of your body and your mind that when you get into that state of peace, right? When you find that that calm, you
Yeah.
know, it almost you don't even recognize it at first because you've been away from it for so long that when
Yes.
you find it, it's this like, what the heck, right? It's
Yeah.
amazing, right?
Can I just tell you, and I would love for people, especially people who are in that relationship physically, what they do to you.
Yeah,
I write on Substack. Okay, aside from the fact that after 3 or 4 years of being with him, I had serious breast cancer.
yeah,
But aside from that, or that feeling of not being able to breathe towards the end, that was a physical pain in my chest that I had. This is your body talking to you.
yeah.
On my Substack page, I write frequently. There is a blog called Take the Photo. And at the
Wait,
bottom of
what's the blog called?
the blog is called, well, that particular episode, if you just Google me, if you just look for me on Substack, if you look for my name on Substack, when you go through my blogs, there is a blog called Take the Photo.
Mm,
And I really believe in this. Take the damn photo. Take it today because tomorrow you're going to be older. Okay. So
yeah,
you are one day younger than tomorrow. Take the photo. It doesn't matter about what your hair looks like. Capture it right now. But at the bottom of that blog, there is a video of me when I was with him towards the end, about 3.5 years ago. He's the one taking the video as it goes around my house. It's all explained. And then there is a video taken of me last summer. And it's as though I've reversed the aging process.
yeah.
It's unreal. And sorry, Gary, but to that end, I would say to anyone that that blog and that video are proof that all of us can turn the light back on inside.
Oh, 100%. I mean, 100%. And it's so sad, but it's so common how the mental abuse starts breaking down your body. It's just so you see it in people. It happened to me when I got my cancer. It's like, as a healthy guy in the world, I'm like, how did I just freaking get cancer, right? So, I had another very weird health episode. So it's like what it does to you physically. And again, this is how crazy we could be, right? We write that off as something else. It's like, oh, well, breast cancer runs in my family, or I shouldn't have had all those Coca-Colas, or something. And we don't look at the cause. We don't look at what that relationship, the dis-ease it set in our body. We even overlook that, right? It's craziness.
Mad. And they're there saying, oh, right, oh, okay, cancer, oh, that's terrible. And you're just thinking, no, it's okay, I'll just get through this. Poor guy, I'm going through chemotherapy and I haven't paid for a holiday yet, but as soon as I'm over the chemotherapy, we'll go away for a weekend. It's just shit like that you, this is why those people come up and say, why did you stay? And you're like,
Well,
I am.
I wasn't going to stay. When I got my cancer, my wife was on another trip, scuba diving. And so I didn't tell her that I had the diagnosis of cancer. And when she got back and we hung out and I said, listen, I'm going to go to the doctor today about my tests. And she goes, well, what do you think? I mean, do you think you're going to have cancer? And I said, well, I already know I have cancer because they told me. And she's like, well, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, why would I bum you out? But what I said is, I think we should get a divorce. And and the reason is because, and I've told this story a couple times, but the reason is because you're not a caregiver. This isn't going to be good for you. And it's not, I'm not mad at you. I'm not against you. It's not a bad thing. Not everyone is a caregiver. Not everyone does it well, right? I did it for my wife for 2 years. I know exactly what it's like. So I said, if you leave now, before people know about the cancer, they just think, oh, you only been married about a year and a half. You didn't work out, right? But if you leave when I'm dying of cancer, you're
Doesn't look.
gonna feel
Oh my
really
gosh,
shitty, right?
you were preparing her for the best
Yeah,
of all. Wow.
I was so, but actually, the cancer shook her out of her. She's like, wow, I could actually lose this guy. See, and that's the difference. That's what I'm saying. She's not a narcissist. She just had a really rough upbringing, and she did a lot of abuse to herself, and so I understood that. But a narcissist would have just said, "You know what? No, I'm not going to leave you because who's going to make my supper and who's going to do my laundry while you have cancer?"
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Honestly, I in the book I write about certain things that he did while I was going through chemotherapy. He came to one session of chemotherapy. Nah, I don't like hospitals. It's not good for me here. I'll wait for you at home and prepare the turmeric tea and the lemon and turmeric tea. Oh, yay! And I was, clapping him and applauding him, being so full of poison. I would come back, go into bed, and then he would say to me, I'm going to sleep in the spare room because, I don't want to disturb you. When all I wanted more than anything was somebody to hold my hand, just because the first night was always the worst.
Yeah.
And I'd moan and groan because of you've got this amalgamation going on inside your body of the worst kind of toxins compared to the anti-nausea drugs that you've got running around. And he'd hear me moaning, because I was so sick. And he'd come in Italian, obviously, because he didn't like speaking in English. And he'd say to me in Italian, what's wrong? What's wrong? When you can't even enunciate, what it is that's wrong, even talking is exhausting. And then I remember this, he'd look at me and he'd say, well, I can't help you if you don't explain what it is that I'm supposed to do. It's like, I mean, that's
Yeah,
clever.
I didn't even ask her to go to the chemo. I didn't even tell her when they were or my radiations. I just went by myself because when my first wife had cancer, and she fought for 2 years. I was at every appointment. I drove her to every chemo. I'd sit there in these freezing cold rooms with these dying people. It was so horrible. And then when I had to go into those rooms, the PTSD was so bad because I'm like, oh, I remember that being in these rooms with my wife. I hated it. But the last thing I wanted to do was have her there with me because I don't know, I just didn't want her to be there. I'm like, I'm just gonna do this myself. It just seemed better for me. But I did. I came home and I slept in the other room too because I'm like, look, I don't know if this stuff leaks out. I don't know if you can get sick from this stuff, so I'm just gonna sleep in the guest room and I didn't get turmeric tea either.
You
I didn't get any
didn't.
tea.
Don't you dare tell me that I'm one up on you for the turmeric tea. Your wife is not enough.
So
I,
let me ask you about you know anybody who's been through what you've been through gets the trauma. It's just madness and the fear and so on and so forth. So how do you then, if you've even started, how do you then even think about getting into another relationship? How do you think how what w- do you start wanting to date again? Do you start missing the intimacy? Do you start missing having a partner? Or is the trauma just like, shit, I'd rather just have a cat. This is ridiculous.
that's such a good question. Yes, I miss the intimacy dreadfully. Yes, I like traveling and I'm very independent and I go off to all sorts of places and I'm resourceful and all of that, but I miss the intimacy and I miss the just having somebody, but I'm not going to put up with mediocre. And I find it really hard to trust. Let's face it, I don't exactly have a brilliant track record. I mean, I kind kind of like going to put it out there to my friends and say, find me somebody, because I just, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I'd turned the phone off. I did turn the phone off. I think the saddest thing with all of this, the really sad thing is I have never, I don't think I've ever truly been in love. Because I think it was always, I think once there was one person, but I didn't think I deserved him, so I let him go. And I'm actually quite pleased I let him go, because I think I would have ended up hurting him ultimately, because I just wasn't ready. I didn't think I was ready. I didn't think I deserved him. I think that's the bottom line. But now I'm really, I mean, I'd love to hang out with somebody. I'm a brilliant cook. No, I'm not trying to sell myself.
I'm a brilliant cook too, and it hasn't done shit for me. So,
Well, it's got me a lot of friends, I have to say. I I don't know. I just, the idea of having somebody, of a relationship where it would be equal, where they would look out for me in the same way that I look out for them. I just cannot imagine that. And I'm shaking a little bit even talking about it, because the idea, I think if I was going to go into anything like that, I'd want to be friends with the person first. I'd really want to get to know them.
it's a very, very, very difficult thing to find. And the people who find it are extremely lucky.
I
I
agree.
found that with my first wife, and then she died of cancer. Well, that sucked. It's a very difficult thing to find, and especially when you're wounded, your guard is up, you're fearful, you're hesitant, and you really want it. It's really a difficult clusterfuck of emotions. Um, why why are you traveling so much? So from what I see here, there's been France, there's been Italy, and there's been Nicaragua. So are you on the run, or you just love to live in different countries?
No, that's like the scope of my life. So I ran a coffee company. I raised money for schools in Nicaragua. I spent a year volunteering, and then I created an ethical coffee company. So I lived over there for a while. I lived in France probably because I was running away. And so for a period, I bought a place in France, and Italy because he was Italian. So that's how I ended up here. But my plan is to move back to the UK. That's my plan. Um,
Because you were in three very narcissistic places. I mean, the men in Nicaragua, France, and Italy are not the most empathetic, feminist sort of. I do believe though that Italians, because I've spent a lot of time in Italy, I've been very lucky to spend a lot of time. I mean, the family structure in Italy is very wonderful. I love the closeness of the community and things like that. But Italian men, French men, and Nicaraguan dudes are not like.
okay, well, I never went near any Nicaraguan men. I just worked in the community. So I have them all at arm's length. France, yes, I agree with you. And unfortunately, this is probably not going to gain me any friends. And I'm planning on writing about this in part two. I think Italy is an amazing country to visit, but living here is altogether a different matter. And the family structure that you talk about, yes, it is, but it is also incredibly misogynistic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
while you mentioned the family structure with, the core, the family, the wife, the husband, well, I mean, I have a few theories on that, because the husband does his duty by giving the wife the child. I've given you a child, so therefore I am allowed to go off and do whatever I want to do. And that's very prevalent. And I think as a result of that, this is a very, shortened version of what I believe. And what I've seen around here, certainly around here, is the wife, the mother, the grandmother, all of them then focus all of their attention on the wonder child. So I'm not saying that there is you didn't hear this from me, that there seems to be a sort of backbone through Italy of maybe not so much narcissism, but certainly severe selfishness.
Well, there's a very, very big machismo thing going on with the Mexicans community, the Mexican men, the French men, and the Italian men. They are very machismo. And
That,
so that gives
sorry,
them, right, that gives them the ability to go do what they want.
yeah, I know we're laughing about this, but actually, I think it's kind of men all over the world. I don't necessarily think it's just in the Latin American countries. I don't think it's just in the Mediterranean countries. I think, I've seen it a lot in Australia as well, just through friends' stories. And, there just generally seems to be, misogyny seems to be resurfacing. It's very ugly and numerous heads, put it that way.
Again, I think it comes back a lot to culture's obviously a massive part of it, but it also comes about from upbringing. I mean, I think there's a lot of wounded people out there. There's just a lot of very screwed up people, and I think we don't deal with it well. Men can't deal with it because we're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to go get help, and we're not allowed to lower our guard from being Mr. Masculinity. So we sometimes just turn it up a notch instead of bringing it down and seeking help and trying to be more empathetic. We go the other way with it. Well, I'm a big bad mofo, right? So it's a pretty tough cycle.
Or you are defending men or talking about how difficult it is for men. Let's go over to the women's side. You want this to be career-driven mothers who are feisty, sexy, and out there. And yet, the second that we do become exactly those articulate, intelligent, go-getting females with a brood of children, I don't have any kids, but behind us, all of a sudden it's a tear down situation. So I am not backing you up on your poor men thing, because I'm not anti men at all, but I think it's an international problem. I really do.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I just think we all have some deep deep wounds in us, but it's funny because you meet so many guys who go, "I want a strong, independent woman," until they get a strong, independent woman, then they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute."
Exactly.
I didn't know
But
you were going to be like that.
I don't think that narcissism is born of an abusive childhood necessarily. I think it actually comes with a sense of entitlement. And I think that's also how narcissists are created, when they think that they can do no wrong, that they are untouchable. And I think that there is a real problem in the world generally of a lack of accountability for actions.
Yeah.
And I find that really negative, it's really hard to deal with when somebody doesn't just say, actually, that was me. It was me this time. I
So,
should.
so Martina, where are you now? You've come out of this relationship. It's been what, 3 years? How are you with your head? How are you with the breast cancer? How are you with, what's going on? How are you doing coming out of all this stuff?
How are you doing? I've always wanted somebody to say that to me. Right. I am I am a work in progress. So I am better every week. Of course, everybody has bad days, but I am so much better than I was 3 years ago, better again than I was two. I'm better this month than I was last month. It's a constantly evolving thing. I am not prone to depression, luckily for me. So yes, I do have days where I cry, or things aren't going particularly well. But I also G myself up with a sort of, metaphorical kick up the backside and say, right, okay, today was shitty, today was awful. can't wait for tomorrow because it's going to be so much better, you know, and it always is. It invariably is. I want to leave Italy. I want to sell up. I'm in the process of selling my house and I would like to leave here, go back to the UK and see a lot more of you know, people that I really, really love. And who knows if I will ever meet that person. But in the meantime, I'm just enjoying being me again, I think. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, just from all the fairy tales I read growing up, the odds of meeting Prince Charming in London and England are better than meeting Prince Charming anywhere else in the world. So it seems like there's a lot of princes in
I'm
in
not
England.
sure. I don't want to meet Prince Charming. I just, no, I don't. I really, that doesn't exist.
If you see a guy on a white horse, run the other way because he's a douchebag. Um, well, Martina, this has been great. So I have to ask you a one last question. I lied. I said I had just the what if you could question at the beginning, but I lied because men are liars. You know that. Um, I have a second question. And my second question is, what thought would you like to leave with people? What's kind of something that means a lot to you that you've been through or not been through, or just a thought you'd kind of like to leave us with that means something to Martina?
This is what got me through. Okay. This thing I came up with while I was writing the book. And it's like an acronym, if you like. And it's three letters, AAB. And the first one is, and it's part of the, for want of a better title, the healing process. The first A is to acknowledge what you've been through. Okay, acknowledge that you have not just split up from a boyfriend because you didn't get on. Acknowledge the fact that you have been in a really abusive relationship and that has torn you apart. And I think as soon as you acknowledge that, you can start to repair. Okay. The next part is allow, and allow yourself to feel angry. There's nothing wrong with that. Allow yourself to grieve for all the time that you lost, because they do steal your time and your youth and your sense of self. Allow yourself to dance in the kitchen. Allow yourself to have the music up as loud as you want. Allow yourself to dress whatever the hell you want to wear. You know, allow yourself to be you. And the final part, and I'm doing all different bits of this, but the final part is be. And that's building yourself back up again, building up your self-esteem, building up your self-confidence to do certain things, building up the ability to say no, and probably because I love them, B is also for building up your boundaries.
Wow, I love every bit of that. So, AAB, we've got acknowledge, we have allow, and we have B for building yourself up. But one of the key words you said there, I thought, is F. You didn't say F. We've got A for acknowledge, A for allow, and B for building. But in allow, you said allow yourself to feel. And I think feeling is just one of the most, along with peace, feeling again is one of the most amazing things because you've stopped feeling. Because if you feel, then the truth pours in. I, I know what's happening now. I can feel what's happening. I'm feeling my ache. I'm feeling my pain. So I can't allow myself to feel because then that would expose everything that's going on that I know it's happening, but I can't get out of this. So feel
So
is such an
while
epic
I'm
word.
slightly annoyed that you've just, somersaulted over my lovely acronym, I am going to say that I actually like that, but I probably haven't put it in there because I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll start feeling again.
I
You'll
will.
start feeling again. Just don't run into some knucklehead that's gonna make you close it back down again, you know? Because once you start feeling again, like you said, dancing, singing, being silly, being stupid, wear whatever you want, say whatever you want, be whoever you want, you know? It's like that's when you start feeling again. And then if you can feel that affection, if you can feel that intimacy, if you can feel that connection with some human again, then that means you're probably getting close, right?
Well, I think just make me laugh. If you can make me laugh and have a decent conversation with me, honestly, I'd melt. I really would.
Nothing feels better than laughing, my dear. I do it all day, every day. It's my favorite thing. I just make myself laugh. I'll do something stupid just so I can make myself laugh because it's my favorite thing and it's the greatest medicine. You know, laughter is the greatest medicine. But Martin, do you have a copy of the book with you? You can hold up for us?
Yes, I'll be right. It's just over there.
Okay, you
Come
go
on.
grab it.
There you go.
Yay. Oh, it's awesome. Okay, everybody. So we have Martina Gruppo. Her book is Hello Flower. It just came out in May of 2024. I know it's going to be
No.
sensational. What?
Yes, it. Yes, yes, it did. Sorry, gosh, I got the year wrong. Yes, yes, it did. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Well, I know it's going to be an outstanding book because Martina is outstanding. So if the book is anything like you, it's a phenomenal book. So everyone needs to reach out and get it. We'll put a link to the on the podcast so you could just click and get it to support Martina. And then one of these days you'll have to do a follow-up when you do the second book. And then we're just gonna do a Where is Martina? We're just gonna You might
Yeah,
even end up in America. Holy crap.
not yet.
Nah, don't come here. We're a bit screwed up at the moment, so don't come here.
We'll see, we'll see. But oh, Gary, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed this. It was just, yeah, it was really good, really good.
Thanks, kiddo. Well, I wish you nothing but love and health. I keep being in remission, keep taking care of yourself, keep doing what you're doing. I love your AAB, acknowledge, allow, and build up yourself. And we're gonna put F at the end of that soon.
We are not. We will.
All right, everybody. You were just exposed to the amazing Martina Gruppo on another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And again, Martina, thank you so much. This was really a pleasure. I'm
Thank you
really
so much.
grateful.
Loved it. Thank
Thanks,
you.
kiddo. See you guys. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.